Shore time means finishing on Friday is as good as finishing on Tuesday.
What short time means to me is when the task is done, I'm done, and I'm done.
Shore time means I can build you a house out of 550 cord and duct tape. You wouldn't want to live there, but I can build it. We got all of the things that a mechanic doesn't like to do out of the way. Buying something, transporting it, setting it up to work on. You know, shorebilly stuff. So today is a big day at Shore Time. Today is the day mechanics get to have fun, tearing down the engine and diagnosing the problem. And we're starting with the carburetor assemblies. But first things first, tools and supplies at the ready, and then we tackle the carbs. Of course, at this stage, we're just taking them off, getting ready to pull the heads and take a look at the cylinders. To get to the cylinders, we've got to pull the heads.
Impact gun is great for taking it off, but I'm still wary of putting it back on with an impact gun.
Absolutely never a smart move.
I just worry about broken bolts or cracking the head. that would be bad.
Once we see the cylinders, we'll really know what's going on with this outboard.
The reveal. Oh, Maddie, we need a piston.
About these rusted bolts here. I don't want to break them. I'm not going to impact them. We're going to go with a little wrench. Let's see what happens.
Oh. Nice.
No, not nice.
Not nice?
It slipped.
Mmm.
That one's okay.
As you can tell, one of the hazards of working with an older outboard, or an older engine, is rusted and corroded bolts. It's not uncommon to strip them or strip off the head and have to drill it out. Luckily, ultimately, we didn't have to do that here. That enabled us to use high-speed impact tools to remove those bolts.
Hey, wound up in the right place.
A good mechanic is part administrative assistant, labeling and storing things for later. And part of that is remembering how you took things apart so you can put them back together later. Because it's no fun tracing vacuum and fuel lines when it's all over. Not even on shore time.
Oh. Hold on, Maddie. We're going to have to stop for a second. This line, we talked about it and then we stopped. That's the line that's pinched behind the starter bracket.
Now,
we got to pull that loose.
See what I mean? Anyhow, once the carbs are off and the reed valves are pulled, we need to go through the back end of the engine to tap out the pistons. We found out earlier at least one piston was bad. We need to discover what's going on with the rest of the engine. Manufacturers will tell you you need to buy a whole bunch of specialty tools, but they're really expensive, and I'm really cheap. The quick workaround in this instance was simply a jack handle and a 12-sided socket wrench. After all, this is shore time. That said, you just can't go bungling about or act like a bull in a china shop, especially when it comes to internal engine parts. You have to employ a little patience, some time, and some TLC. No, I didn't say THC. I said TLC, as in applying even and direct pressure until the bolt moves. And when it does, going very slowly.
So once we cracked open the head, we discovered it was worse than we both thought. I initially thought it was rings. Curtis initially thought it was a head gasket. As it turns out, the ring actually melted and put the cylinder out of hone with lots of grooves in it. So we've got to decide, are we going to continue or are we just going to cut bait? I think at this point, in for a penny, out for a pound.
So we got the heads pulled, and Maddie and I disagreed prior. We were both wrong. Head gasket, which was my guess, it's good. It's in great shape. Maddie suspected rings. Well, he was right, to be honest with you. The rings melted inside the piston, scored up the cylinder walls, and left a whole bunch of melted metal and stuff stuck to it. So the question is, where do we go from here? And say in for a penny, in for a pound.
Whether we're in or out for that pound, we're definitely out of this episode. Like, subscribe, and get notified, please.
Shore time means finishing on Friday is as good as finishing on Tuesday.
What short time means to me is when the task is done, I'm done, and I'm done. Short time means I can build you a house out of 550 cord and duct tape. You wouldn't want to live there, but I can build it. After we pulled her apart, we found out that the root cause of why the rings melted into the piston was the carburetor. And so when we start this rebuild, the first thing we're going to do is take care of all the carburetors.
I'm not exactly sure we can work on carbs after Grumpy Mike, the resident Italian of the bunch, just made 2 pounds of linguine and clam sauce. Well, wait a minute. Maybe that's the wrong kind of carbs. The right kind of carbs for this outboard are the ones that Curtis is working on right now. Cleaning, rebuilding, making sure, especially in this two-stroke, that enough gas-oil mixture gets to the cylinders to lubricate them when we put it back together.
All right, so we just pulled this out, and this is the needle valve that opens and closes to let fuel into the bowl. Now, this is dry, but you can see all the crud on the tip of the valve. This is a brand new one. So you can see all the dirt and gunk and everything right around where that seats at the top here, the back end of it. And most likely that got stuck and didn't allow fuel into the bowl, robbing the cylinder of fuel and oil.
That is called a blow test. Oh, get your mind out of the gutter. It's how mechanics check for gas and airflow in a carburetor.
We pulled a second carb apart to compare because like I said earlier, this looks good, maybe too good. Pulled another one apart, and sure enough, this one you could tell fuel and oil have been in here. Everything, the float's wet, everything in here is wet. You can see it's got a light sheen on it and everything. This one here, everything is dry. It even has a little bit of, like dry corrosion up on top of the screw here. No marks of anything. The float valves work. Now I'm gonna rebuild the float valve on the one because we have it, but seems like this one was not getting fuel, even into the bowl. Now, you saw the blow test. It does work properly, the float does. So now the question is there a crack in a fuel line where fuel was leaking out, robbing this carb? Is there a blockage in the fuel manifold that it wasn't getting to it? We need to figure out why fuel was not getting to this carb.
And with 6 carburetors on a 6-cylinder power head, you might imagine that those carbs are pretty small, as is the problem. And so they are. These specks of dirt clog the needle valve in the carburetors, blocking the critical flow of oil and gas into the cylinder at the appropriate amounts. Just because we're on shore time, however, doesn't mean we're not going to do our due diligence. Checking 2 carburetors simply isn't enough. We're going to pull all the pistons and do all the rings. It's time-consuming and costly, but we can't just sell a hunk of junk. So, whether we like it or not, let the teardown begin.
After we pulled more pistons, we found out that the problem continued to another cylinder, the number 1 cylinder.
You're close.
When she says she's close, you keep hammering away.
I'm actually pretty glad we went and did all the other cylinders. As we progressed, we found out that pretty much all the rings were shot and all the cylinders had issues. So, when you're in for a pound, you might as well do the whole shooting match. 6 sets of rings and pistons. Of course, however, before you get to replacing anything, you have to hone those cylinders. The bad rings and pistons scarred up the cylinders pretty well. There was a ton of debris and gouges that we simply couldn't let go. And by not letting go, what I mean is a thorough cleaning of the cylinders with WD in preparation for use of that $20 honing tool from Amazon. Honing a cylinder isn't hard, but it does require patience and time.
Yeah, I want to get this little last bit here. It bugs me just enough that I want to give it another run. There's only one hazard in honing the cylinders. It makes you look so purty.
So coming into today, I thought I knew what parts we needed. We had them ordered. We started tearing down the motor, found out I was wrong. We needed a lot more parts. But we did get to hone all the cylinders. After inspecting them, we found more that were bad. We got to hone them, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it turned out a whole lot better than I expected. I'm really, really, really happy with where we're at on this thing.
I'm actually very pleased with what happened today. Going in today, I was really worried that I would get too close to taking too much out of the cylinder. The tolerance is 3/100ths of an inch. We got to 0.006 of an inch, and I'm just thrilled with that. It turned out way better than I thought it would.
What I'm not so sure of is just how well the episode turned out. That said, I'm equally sure that this episode is done. Like, subscribe, and get notified, please.